Tonight on Bridge City News, a court case involving alleged sexual assaults dating back to the 1980s is underway in Lethbridge. Mothers Against Drunk Driving officially launched their Red Ribbon campaign today. And federal Green Party leader Elizabeth May stepped down as leader of her party. We have the details.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Robbins.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. A case involving 4 counts of sexual assault and a count of sexual interference dating back more than 40 years got underway in Lethbridge today. The case involves a man from Raymond who was 18 when the alleged incidents began, and one of them involved a minor. Ainsley O'Reilly was at the Lethbridge Provincial Courthouse with the details.
A Raymond man pleaded not guilty to multiple charges of sexual assault dating back to the 1980s. It's day one at the Lethbridge Courthouse, and today we heard from an RCMP member who was assigned to the case back in 2016. She recalled the process of collecting impact statements of the multiple accusers.
Lethbridge City Council heard from the Coalition on Opioid Use in our city. Numerous partners, including Alberta Health Services and Lethbridge Police, spoke at the Community Issues Committee meeting earlier today at City Hall. All partners provided a different strategy for targeting the drug crisis.
I would express my frustration that the things that we need, we've been asking for some time. We need a dedicated Crown prosecutor. How long is that going to take? So we can effectively prosecute drugs. We need a safe communities and neighborhoods permanent unit in Lethbridge so we can shut down drug houses and stop the supply. How long is that going to take? We need the supports in the city of Lethbridge that are available in the larger cities of Calgary and Edmonton.
At the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We might be advocating in different ways. Our messaging might be a little bit different, but the outcome that everybody wants is exactly the same.
The province to help us support through our contract another full-time ambulance. It's something that we feel is needed in the city, just mostly because not only do we find that we're doing more of these calls that are related to the opioid crisis and other drugs, but we also have a duty to our community and the people that live here.
We have dedicated resources to deal with drug-specific investigations, and I know that the chief and the executive of the police service is currently looking at other strategies in dealing with the drug issues in Lethbridge and the surrounding region, and that's something that we're meeting regularly in the next month to look at.
The community groups also spoke about the increase of methamphetamines as opposed to opioid drugs. The Kainai Transition Centre also stopped by City Hall today. The group thanked the city for helping to foster employment opportunities for Indigenous people. Former Blood Tribe Chief Charles Weaselhead spoke about the impact the drug crisis has had and how many of the city's most vulnerable have gotten off of drugs and found good jobs.
What we're trying to reach is the ones that are most vulnerable right now, perhaps haven't been employed for a number of years, perhaps, that they haven't gone through the education system, where they can easily adapt into jobs, and some that are over 30, we have some younger ones, but we're open to anybody that's committed, that's willing to be trained, that's willing to perhaps go off of our community to get employment, So those are the kind of things, that we need to contend with.
The City of Lethbridge has recently employed 15 people with the assistance of the Kainai Transition Centre. Mothers Against Drunk Driving Lethbridge brought the community together to kick off its annual Red Ribbon campaign. Organizers say the struggle to bring down impaired driving incidents across the country means they have to take every opportunity they can to raise awareness of its lasting impact, especially with the upcoming Christmas season.
Even a small amount of alcohol or cannabis can impair your ability to drive. We ask that you call an Uber or a cab, arrange for a designated driver, or stay the night. If someone you know has been drinking, do not let that person get behind the wheel. Take their keys and arrange for a sober ride home for them. They will thank you. We can all help prevent impaired driving and make our roads safe this holiday season and all year long.
We're certainly going to be supporting of the project. We're going to be out in full force again as the Christmas season and the holidays approach with check stops. We'll be out checking for impaired drivers. And then the other thing that we're going to do today is we're probably going to partner with MAD and display our red ribbons on our marked police vehicles as well. The Red Ribbon campaign is in its 32nd year and is on now until January the 6th.
5 people arrested following a drug bust in Medicine Hat. The 3-month-long investigation wrapped up on October 24th when Alert's Medicine Hat organized crime team searched a house in Brooks. Police found more than 700 grams of methamphetamines, 93 grams of cocaine, a rifle, a machete, and close to $25,000 in cash. The 5, all in their 30s, face various drug charges and drug trafficking, also unauthorized possession of a firearm. An anti-crime rally was held in Lethbridge yesterday along Mayor McGrath Drive. Mallory Christensen of the group Connecting Our Community Lethbridge says they have to keep up the fight to take back our city and tackle the growing crime in Lethbridge.
We've seen a dramatic increase in property crime and drug-related crime. That's, attempted break and enters, going through people's backyards. We started at Connecting Our Community as a result of a woman who was violently sexually assaulted in our neighborhood. We stood up because we believe that our community deserves better, that our neighborhood deserves better. The City of Lethbridge needs to continue to consider hiring more police officers. We know that a motion for 8 has recently been passed and going through the Police Commission. However, we know that 8 officers will make somewhat of an impact, but we do need more. We're here today to raise awareness, we're here today for solutions, and we're here today to come together as a community to say enough is enough.
Christensen says the group will continue to hold community meetings every second Monday at the Lethbridge Tabernacle Church. The province announced today that a Mental Health and Addictions Advisory Council has been created to improve access to addiction prevention, treatment, and recovery services. As part of the government's overall commitment, $140 million will be invested over the next 4 years to improve mental health illness and addiction. Now, in a statement released today, Pat Dixon, co-chair of the Mental Health and Addictions Advisory Council, said, "We will strengthen the recovery continuum and give hope to Albertans who are struggling with mental illness and addiction. Recovery will take a front seat in our journey to a healthy and prosperous Alberta." The UCP's health budget is just over $22 billion for 2019 and 2020. After close to 13 years as leader of the Green Party of Canada, Elizabeth May is stepping down effective immediately. She did say, however, that she is staying on as a parliamentary leader of the Green Party caucus.
I wanted to choose a moment when we had had a lot of success before leaving. And we have a leadership race already planned and a convention planned. We achieved more than 1 million votes for the first time ever. We have 3 elected MPs in a first-past-the-post voting system. And I'm very close to my Green Party colleagues around the world. There is no other country with first-past-the-post that has achieved as much in the Green Party as we have in Canada. I'm not stopping my work. The climate crisis is as critical as ever. So I'm not going away as part of a political force and a political movement in this country to get real climate action, which none of the other parties, lamentably, not one of them, understands the urgency and is prepared to do what needs to be done.
Deputy Leader Joanne Roberts takes over as interim leader of the Green Party. May says she promised her daughter that after the 2019 election, that would be her last as party leader. The group, which wants to see the West separate, applied to become a registered party today. Peter Downing of the group Wexit said he filed the paperwork with Elections Canada. Downing said even though they only needed 250 signatures, they actually gathered closer to 500 of them. Wexit, which is a portmanteau of Western and Exit, is a Western separatist movement that has gained a lot of momentum since the Trudeau Liberals won a minority government in the last election. I asked Downing why so many Albertans want out of Confederation.
Well, a number of reasons. If you look at the oil downturn, the price of oil, obviously that's our bread and butter of our economy in Alberta. We lost over 100,000 jobs in that time, and we've been kicked on every side, whether it be through pipeline moratoriums with Bill C-69, tanker bans with Bill C-48, a completely unfair equalization program that we send over taxation equalization, we send over $40 billion a year to Ottawa. We've put in $622 billion since the beginning of the equalization program. And all we're being told is that our oil is dirty, that we're being, ungrateful little children, that type of thing.
A rally of Wexit members drew a crowd of around 700 this past weekend in Edmonton. A new caucus has been formed in the Senate to ensure the will of the majority does not always trump regional interests. Regional representation is a big concern on Parliament Hill right now. With the Liberals' newly elected government, not a single seat was won by the Liberals in either Alberta or Saskatchewan. Of the 11 members of the new Canadian Senators group, 9 were appointed as independents by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. 6 were appointed as Conservatives by former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, but only 2 were still sitting as Conservatives prior to today. As a child growing up in Taber, Martin learned early that his chances to lead a long life were slim. When he was just 2 weeks old, he had been diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. CF is a chronic and frequently fatal genetic disease of the body's lungs and digestive system. It is estimated that 1 in 3,600 kids born in Canada have CF, and the average lifespan is only 18 to 20 years of age.
Life is mind over matter, and it's what you make of it. I've always been told from society that I can't do certain things, and I've always overcome them.
Martin de Vlieger always knew he could change his life and the life of many others. And he has. De Vlieger is a motivational speaker that travels worldwide, inspiring and encouraging people with cystic fibrosis to dream big. His message for everyone is simple.
Don't wait till the end of your life to live your life. Live your life now, because nobody knows what tomorrow brings. Tomorrow, you might not be here. And it's important that we don't waste any opportunities in life.
Despite it all, de Vlieger believes that having cystic fibrosis was a blessing in disguise that brought him a mission.
It's been a gift for me. It's given me opportunity to help other people with rare diseases and cystic fibrosis, encourage them to live their own lives, and not just to give up and literally die. Everybody has a path. I believe that my path was set for me to have cystic fibrosis. It's opened up a lot of opportunities for me. And I believe that I will continue to help other people with it until my time is over. I always wonder, now I have children, am I going to see them graduate? Am I going to see them get married? And it's something that's in our mind that never goes away, that a normal person who doesn't have a disease doesn't understand that.
For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
The National Film Board of Canada and Amnesty International Lethbridge are presenting a special Indigenous film entitled We Will Stand Up, 6 till 9 o'clock tonight in the Theatre Gallery at the downtown Lethbridge Public Library. The film follows the events leading up to the death of Colton Boushie, who died from a gunshot wound after entering Gerald Stanley's property with his friends. Stanley was acquitted in the case, which caused shock and outrage with the Boushie family and across Canada. Now, seating for the film is limited to 180 seats. Tickets can be picked up at Eventbrite, or rush tickets will be available at the door. A legal challenge of an agreement signed up by Canada and the United States in 2002 was debated in federal court earlier today. The Safe Third Country Agreement does not allow people from crossing into Canada from the United States at formal crossings and asking for asylum. The reason? Both countries are considered safe for refugees. Advocacy groups say that has changed since U.S. President Donald Trump tightened asylum rules and regulations. They argue the U.S. is no longer safe for refugees, and therefore the agreement violates people's charter rights. An investigation by a group of journalists has uncovered high levels of lead in Canadian drinking water. In several cities, the contamination was consistently higher than they were ever in Flint, Michigan, where there's been a long-time water crisis. The investigation found some schools and daycares in cities like Regina, Oakville, Ontario, and Montreal had lead levels so high that they could impact children's health. Authorities in California ordered evacuations of around 8,000 people in Ventura County. A fast-moving wildfire has been spreading from Santa Paulo. Hundreds of firefighters have been attacking the blaze.
We are in the middle of a big fight. We're about a week into this, and the end is not yet in sight. We are finding that the winds are starting to change, and that presents its own challenges all by itself. As the winds shift, we have a whole new fuel bed that opens up and is subject to a pretty significant firefight. My request to the community is, again, please stay active and engaged. Please have a plan and be ready to go at a moment's notice should you receive any kind of word through our social media.
Currently, we have approximately 2,300 structures threatened and about 8,000 people under evacuation orders. Last night and early morning, we had individuals flying small drones in the area of the flight operations for the fire suppression. This creates a very significant hazard for our airborne firefighting assets.
In a surprise announcement earlier today, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to cut U.S. aid to California during wildfires that have burned across the state.
You got fires eating away at California every year because management is so bad. The governor doesn't know. He's like a child. He doesn't know what he's doing. And I've been telling him this for 2 years. They've got to take care of it. Every year, it's always California. It's rarely somebody else or someplace else. But Nancy Pelosi ought to go back to her district and take care of it, because her district has become a mess. #1 in the country for going down. All she thinks about is impeachment, but she doesn't want to impeach. You know who wants to impeach? The people that run the party, the radical left.
A supply ship docked with the International Space Station earlier today. It brought an oven for baking cookies and a vest to protect against radiation. Northrop Grumman launched the capsule for NASA from Wallops Island, Virginia. The experiment is seen as a precursor to another Moon or Mars landing. Other newly arrived equipment will be used in a series of NASA spacewalks later this month to fix a key particle physics detector. A cool and overcast day in Lethbridge. Some more of the white stuff is on the way. Complete weather details are coming up. We hovered right around the freezing mark for most of the day today. Tonight, a few clouds developing with a low near -4. Tomorrow, chance of flurries developing with a high of +1. Wednesday, mainly cloudy and a high of -8. Warming up quite a bit on Thursday. Expect a mixture of sun and cloud and a high of 6 degrees on Thursday, a couple of degrees warmer on Friday. Saturday, the mercury drops to 0. Sunday, slightly cooler under cloudy sky and a high of only -1. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 8 degrees and an average low of -5. The highest temperature in this date was recorded in 1949 at 22 degrees, and the record low a chilly -24 in 2003. Sunrise was at 7:25, sunset at 5:05. Looking at the national temperatures now, Victoria should receive rain and a high of 10. Lots of clouds and 10 degrees as well in Vancouver. Flurries a -2 for Calgary on Tuesday. Periods of snow and -5 for Edmonton. Snow and -4 degrees in Regina tomorrow. Snow and -6 in Saskatoon. Just a few clouds and -7 is on tap for Winnipeg. Expect light showers and 7 degrees in Toronto tomorrow. Rain and 8 degrees in Ottawa. Periods of rain as well and 9 in Montreal on Tuesday. In the Maritimes, expect a few showers and 10 in Fredericton. A mixture of sun and cloud and 11 for both Halifax and Charlottetown. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect a mainly sunny sky and a high near 8 degrees for tomorrow. Sobeys is recalling Compliments brand fresh-cut vegetable products. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says it is due to possible Listeria contamination. The products, which include sweet kale blend, vegetable platter with ranch dip, and Power Green blend, all have best before dates of October 31st, 2019. They were sold across Canada. Anyone who has them should either throw them out or return them to point of purchase. So far, there have been no reports of any illnesses linked to the products. Listeria poisoning symptoms include nausea, fever, muscle aches, and a severe headache. A new report by the Bank of Montreal says business investment in Canada is at its lowest level since the mid-1990s. That was when our country was pulling out of a prolonged recession and businesses were not in the greatest shape for investing. The report says business investment took a dive in Canada when oil prices fell in 2014, and not much has come around to replace the oil money. BMO chief economist Doug Porter says while things may be bad in Canada, it is a lot better in the U.S. since our southern neighbors are leading the world in the high-tech sector. Businesses spend far more money investing in intellectual property south of the border than they do here. Porter says intellectual property is a major part of any advancing economy. He says Canada's economy is looking a little old-fashioned because of our dependence on construction and resource extraction. The Canada Pension Plan Investment Board has reached a deal to purchase Pattern Energy Group. The deal is valued at just over $6 billion US. Pattern Energy has a portfolio of 28 renewable energy products in Canada, the United States, and Japan. Once the deal closes, the CPPIB will work with Riverstone Holdings to combine the operating assets of Pattern Energy with the development firm Pattern Energy Group Holdings. Sports car maker Ferrari is teaming up with fashion designer Giorgio Armani. The move is part of a strategy to squeeze more value out of its brand by spreading it to other sectors. A Ferrari spokesperson said the company aims to have 10% of its earnings before taxes and interest from 3 new areas in 7 to 10 years, including apparel, entertainment, and luxury services. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up almost 76 points today to 16,669. The Dow was up 114 points to 27,462. The S&P 500 was up 11 points to 3,078. The Nasdaq was up almost 47 points to 84.33. Oil was up 32 cents to 56.52 per barrel. Natural gas was up 10 cents to $2.82. Gold was down $4.80 to $15.0961 per ounce, and silver was down 7 cents to $18.06 per ounce. Wheat is at $227 per metric ton, barley's at $225, canola's at $457, and corn is at $279 per metric ton. Live cattle was up 55 cents to $120.30, feeder cattle was down 5 cents to $149.28, and lean hogs were up 8 cents on the day to $65.30. The Canadian dollar was down slightly on the day to 76.01 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, after more than a decade as leader of the Green Party of Canada, Elizabeth May has stepped down. She did say, however, that she is staying on as a parliamentary leader of the Green Party caucus. May says she wanted to choose a moment when the Greens had a lot of success before leaving. Deputy Leader Joanne Roberts takes over as interim leader. The company Maybelline has been around for a few generations. The family behind the company went through a lot of adversity and some tragedy. Up next, I chat with Sherry Williams with Maybelline about how they went through that tragedy together. That interview is coming up. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. On Monday, November 11th, Remembrance Day ceremonies will be taking place at Exhibition Park beginning at 10 a.m., followed by a gathering at the Cenotaph at noon. Come in support of our brave veterans as we remember those who courageously fought for freedom. For details, visit lethbridgelegion.ca. A Victorian Prairie Christmas is taking place November 13th and 14th from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Galt Historic Railway Park, north of Sterling, Alberta. Enjoy a beautiful and festive atmosphere featuring live entertainment, delicious food, and Christmas pudding with rum sauce. Admission is $20 for adults or $18 for groups of 5 or more. Pre-book today by calling Jeff DeBoer at 403-327-2854. For more information, visit galtrailway.com. Come for a festive evening to Crossroads Counseling Shine the Light Christmas Celebration and Fundraiser on Friday, December 6th, beginning at 6 p.m. at the Coast Lethbridge Hotel. Enjoy a full-course dinner, a silent auction, and live musical entertainment featuring the Freedom House Choir, West Side Choir, and the Evangelical Free Church Praise Choir. Tickets are $50 per person and can be purchased at the Crossroads Counseling Office. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
For anyone who wears mascara, you know the name, Maybelline, a makeup giant. Now, there's an interesting story behind this company, and our guest today has written a book on it. Sherry Williams is the great niece of the company's founder and author of The Maybelline Story and the spirited family dynasty behind it. Sherry, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Maybelline has been around a very long time and has a lot of success. Are people interested in hearing more about the family story?
It seems like they're more interested in the family story than the corporate story or the business story. Even though a lot of people love the success, they're interested in the drama behind it.
Now, is it actually true that Tom Lyle got the idea of the eye makeup from seeing his sister Mabel fixing her eyelashes with coal and Vaseline after she accidentally singed herself?
Yes, that is definitely true. She was mixing some ash from a cork and a little Vaseline and put it on her eyelashes and eyebrows. And Tom Lyle walked in and said, "You look like the silent film stars." He worked in the Nickelodeon, so he was amazed to see those eyes. And he said, "Is there anything like this on the market that women could buy?" And she said, "No, they have lipstick and rouge." But eyes were the most ignored part of a woman's face in 1915. So he went to a chemist and came out with his first little product called Lash Brow-ine, and then changed it to Maybelline in honor of his sister who gave him the idea.
Wow, fascinating story. So how old was your great uncle when he started the mail order makeup company?
19. He's basically a teenager.
That's incredible. So
I
graduating
know.
high school and then starting this big company, that must have been quite
He
the
did-
undertaking for a teenager, right?
Well, no, but he didn't even graduate high school.
Oh,
He only went through the 10th grade. And he knew that he wanted to be an entrepreneur. And he kept trying to figure out different products that would launch. And this little idea launched.
that's incredible. Probably get all of his sister's best friends or all of his sister's friends as clients off the top. Now, I understand that Tom Lyle had already tried and failed 3 times at getting a business going. Is that true?
Well, yes, he had these ideas. He was trying to think of something. And so he had gag gifts. You know, he would sell in the classifieds these gag gifts. And that didn't work. And then he tried selling another kind of product that he didn't realize how much the shipping would be on it. So it was like vegetables or something with a farmer. He thought, oh, that's what it's going to be. People need, food. But he didn't realize that the shipping killed him. And so when he finally did come up with this idea, he needed the money, and his brother said, "You've already failed. I don't want to give you the money." He goes, "Just give me one chance." And it took right off. Pretty close.
So once the eye makeup business got started, yeah, I guess it really took off. What was it that really got customers' attention?
Silent films. See, they both were born at the same time. The silent film industry was just in its infancy, but women were for the first time seeing those eyes on the screen. And they were made up heavily with kohl. And women began to notice those eyes. And Tom Lyle just said, "We got to put this in the classifieds because, women will buy this." Not all women, actually flappers. Flappers, prostitutes, good, I know, good women on the street did not buy Maybelline in the beginning because a virtuous woman would not put anything on her eyes.
So you're talking about silent films. Did any Hollywood starlets at that time, or maybe Hollywood producers, reach out to your great uncle and say,
Well,
"Hey, we want your product"?
Well, actually, he reached out to them because what he used for marketing Maybelline was the silent film stars, and then the big stars of the 30s and 40s. And so, no, you never saw a picture of Tom Lyle. He was always represented by a Hollywood star.
That's amazing. Now, a lot of the family actually joined in with the family business early on, correct?
Well, yes, because they all lived in a little flat above the first little factory that they had. All of them, mom and dad, 5 kids, and they went to the post office every day with satchels, and they had to carry the mail back because the mail was causing such a problem at the post office. They said, "You got to come down here and bring your bag." So the whole family, with a wheelbarrow and everything, went down there, lugged it, brought it to the kitchen table, took the gum and glue off of it, took the quarters off, sent the product back. That's how they started.
Let's talk about some of the more unique marketing techniques that your great uncle used. Talk a bit about that.
Well, marketing, his claim to fame was advertising. He would like to be remembered as the king of advertising because he was, even though he didn't get a diploma from high school, he had some other brilliance. He was always a step ahead of what a woman wanted. Now, he was gay. I mean, I guess you know that, right? Even though he had a child, was married, and it was annulled. But his whole thing with women is he could sense ahead of the market what they wanted. So he didn't just target one market. He targeted every single market all the way through for the 50 years that he was with Maybelline. And every different ad would appeal to this market or that market or your grandmother, your mother, your teenagers in the early 60s. So I think that, and he was also the first of so many products. He was the first to have, now you walk into a dime store, um, and you see twirling, the twirling with all the products on it. Well, that was his idea. And other ideas that were innovative that they use now, that's no big deal, like putting bubble wrap when you go in and you buy a product and it's on a cardboard, and that was his idea. So he was very innovative besides being a advertising genius.
Were there any other companies that maybe looked towards to get some creative marketing inspiration early on?
Oh, no, no, no. He bought up little companies. Maybelline was the first. Before 1925, there was no word for mascara. Mascara was called Maybelline. Like a girl would say, "I need to order some Maybelline." That would mean I need to order some mascara. So no, any little product, any little company that would come on the market, he quickly bought them up, especially after the Depression, because nobody could compete with his marketing genius.
Like any new startup company, though, there are a lot of lows. I mean, it takes a lot of work, a lot of grunt work to get it going. What are some of the obstacles that your great uncle run into as he tried to market his product line?
Well, the biggest one was when he first came out with his first product. It was called Lash Brow Een, and he was sued by another little cosmetic eyelash company that was called something very similar to that. And so that was the first obstacle that he had right off the bat, was that he had to, which was the main reason he renamed it Maybelline. But other obstacles that he had was the fact that he was gay. it it, it was a it was almost the government tried to stop anybody in the women's cosmetic industry that was gay. So that was another reason why he hid behind the gates of the Rudolph Valentino villa, he and his partner of 50 years. And there were just other, the depression. He lost everything, all the first money that he made in the banks closed, but he didn't stop. At that moment, he decided, I'm not going to continue putting it in the classifieds or the back of magazines. We're going to put it into drugstores. We're going to lower the price. We may not have the volume. I mean, they were 75 cents. He lowered it to 10. He made the mascara a little smaller, and any woman, even during the Depression, could afford 10 cents. So that was another genius thing.
Did Tom Lyle Williams ever consider giving up on his dream? Did he ever come to the point saying, you know what, I'm out, this is too difficult?
He worried all the time. He was a great worrier, but he was also a Catholic. He prayed all the time. He would get down on his knees every night. He would ask for guidance. And there was one time when the company, I would say maybe 1940s or late 30s, during the Depression, he wanted to sell the company to a big conglomerate in New York. So he went up to New York with one of the people that worked with him, and Rags Raglan, and Rags said, you can't sell. This is just the beginning. There's the moon to go to. We got to shoot for the moon. So he always had people talk him off the cliff. But yeah, he'd get scared. He'd get scared because it was growing so big. And you know, when companies grow big, you either have to get more products, you have to have more money and put it. It's not easy.
So what did he say to the naysayers that said, you know what, this is never going to work, this will never take off?
Well, he'd had that in the very beginning. They said he's a dreamer. He's never going to make anything of himself. He's a loser. And that's why he was forced to have his marriage annulled, because they said he's never going to make anything of himself. So what he did was he left home and he went to Chicago, and he moved into a boarding house, and he worked 24 hours a day, and he never stopped.
Your great uncle sold the company in 1967, and the family made a big profit from this. How did the sudden wealth actually impact the family?
Oh, well, of course, it was exciting in the beginning, but so many tragedies happened. You know, I mean, everybody thinks they want to win the lottery, and, you know, they just dream of having a windfall of a lot of money, but uh, we didn't even know. Tom Lyle left all of his money to his family and the people that worked for him, so that they became millionaires overnight. The guy who started in the stock room with him in the beginning, he got a check for $1 million. So we all went out to our mailboxes that day, and there was checks in there for several million, whatever it was. And I don't think that we were prepared. We were just like a regular little middle class family, very close, very loving. I went to Lutheran school until the 8th grade, you know, I mean, kind of like really innocent. And when that money came, it just blew everyone apart. And there were a lot of tragedies. My mother's uh, fell into mental illness. She could not deal with the transition, especially my father, because every woman in town was interested in him at that point. And my grandmother took off with a gigolo and was killed, you know, in Hot Springs, Arkansas, in a arson-related fire. So, I mean, it's just been so hard. But now I have a daughter and grandchildren, and they're more normal than, because I grew up with such glamour and, you know.
Now, there were some con artists. There were con artists as well that tried to swindle some family members out of their wealth, too. Tell me more about that.
That was my grandmother. She was 74, and he was 10 years younger. Took her to Hot Springs, Arkansas, away from Newport Beach, California, where the family lived, to Hot Springs, Arkansas, during the time of Clinton had just become governor. She opened a dinner palace, and no one knows if it was the mafia or her business partner, but 3 bombs went off in her house the next day, and she was burned beyond recognition. And that was our Nana, you know. So.
Now, Sherry, tell me about this book that you wrote as well. It doesn't happen on its own. What was the most difficult part for you in putting this together?
Staying with it, because it took me many, many years. My first inkling of an idea to do it was when I was 15. There was a lot more story that was going to unfold before I finally did it. Also, I think getting a publisher, was challenging, and editing was really difficult, but it all came together after so many years. It was synchronicity because a friend of mine met a publisher and introduced me to them, and over time the book was published. So, but that, not giving up. I've written a second book right now, and we are in the midst of showing it for possible miniseries along with the first book. And right now, even it's like I go, this is so hard. Do I want to keep pushing and having disappointments and all of that goes with anything that you really want? But one day at a time, I live life, and a phone call comes, an email has to be answered, I have to show up someplace. I just do it and kind of let destiny take its course.
Should aspiring authors expect a lot of rejection and closed doors?
Yes. Yes. Nowadays, the big publishing companies, just like the big production companies, aren't what they used to be. It's more like independent productions now on Netflix and Amazon and Apple. And it's the same with publishing. Just don't be afraid to self-publish your own book and market it. You make sure you've got your website, your blog, your Twitter, all those things you can do just like my great uncle did. It's just that he did it in classified magazines. Now you do it in social media. But yes, if you have the desire and you put that work in every day, don't you think it's like destiny? Something will happen if you don't give up.
And for our female viewers, do you have any beauty secrets you can pass along?
Well, my grandmother, Miss Maybelline, the one that was killed in the fire, she would create this beauty mask, and it is really incredible. It's a face mask like a mud pack. And you just mix a little bit of, say, flour, mostly like oat flour or rice flour, a little bit of yogurt. Put those things together and put that on your face and let it dry, and it just brings all the blood to the surface and just feeds the skin. And when you wash that thing off, your skin is just so smooth. That's one of my favorite secrets.
I may have to try that myself. Sherry Williams, author of The Maybelline Story and the Spirited Family Dynasty Behind It. Thanks a lot for joining me today from California.
My pleasure.
So what comes to mind when you think of motorcycles? Some people think of biker gangs, others maybe accidents, while still other people may think of the wind in their hair and the freedom of the open road, like I used to with my old 69 Yamaha street bike. Today's guest has a few thoughts on this as well. Tim Ryder is a pastor and teacher and author of the book, God, a Motorcycle and the Open Road. Welcome to Bridge City News, Tim.
Thank you so much, Hal. It's good to be with you guys. I wish I were up there in person.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have you here. Now, Tim, you've done a bit of riding over your last 48 years, 240,000 miles, 46 states, 3 countries. Out of all of this, you wrote a book. So what kind of adventures can we look forward to reading in this book?
Ooh, a huge variety. We've got 50 different chapters. Each chapter is about 1,000 words, and a third of that is a story about biking. And then the rest talks about what lessons we can learn about life and God from that story. Things like walking into a bar and getting scared to death, being roused by a cop in a park in Groton, Connecticut, being chased for probably 20 miles by a mad motorist.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, when you ask people why they enjoy riding, a common answer is, well, it's the freedom and adventure. Now, do you think there is something that the Creator really instilled within us, why we enjoy riding so much?
I think so. I need mountain and outside fixes regularly. And I think the reason for that, you see God much more clearly in nature. And when I'm up in the mountains, like that road from Banff up to Jasper, it just absolutely astounded me. Or the going to the Sun Highway in Glacier. You see God, and you're not in this protective steel cage. You're right out in the midst of it. You get all the aromas, the sights, 360 degrees of being able to see God's glory. When we're in the city, we see man's production. When we're on a bike out in the woods, in the wilderness, we see God's. And I prefer the latter.
Now, my first set of wheels, as I mentioned, was an old Yamaha street bike. I used to take it from my hometown of Calgary to McKay's Ice Cream, 52 flavors in Cochrane, Alberta. It was a lot of fun, an amazing time And yeah, I did spill a little bit on myself. Now, how and why did you get into riding a bike?
You know, it's looking back, it had to be a God thing. I was let's see, before my senior year in college, that a neighbor had his little Honda Trail 90 for his kids. And he had to go pick them up. And he said, Tim, you want to come along? And it was a boring day, so I did. And Hal pushed and pushed to get me to ride the bike. It was a big dirt track. I had no interest whatsoever. Finally, just getting to shut up. I said, okay, I didn't know how to shift or anything. I got back and said, well, did you shift? I said, oh, yeah, of course I did. No idea what to do. And it was okay. It was nice with the wind in my face. And then the next year, we're in the midst of finals week. And we went out to see Easy Rider. It was 1970. And we were going to take a trip to Canada. One of my senior year roommate, another roommate had moved up to Canada in Kamloops. We're going to go see Ron and work for a TV station there. It turned out that Mark ran out of money and I got in an accident in my car. And then we saw Easy Rider. And I thought, I like that. That looks like that freedom of the open road. You're in the midst of nature. And so I saved a little bit of money, bought a 350 Honda Scrambler, blue, and took that to Canada. Month-long trip. And that absolutely hooked me. It changed the course of my life. I don't think that ride around the dirt field on Little Trail 90 would have ever done it. But seeing Easy Rider got me into the trip. And that trip was transformative to see God's glory. What's ironic, I wasn't a follower at that point. I grew up in church, got away. And this is that time of searching. It was about 5 months after that trip that I finally came back to God. And that trip on the bike played a key role.
Now, in your opening chapter, you quote Psalms 45, 3 through 4. Ride majestically, ride triumphantly, ride on the side of truth. Why did you choose that?
A friend of mine gave me that verse. He's from the outside of Calgary, Murray Pura. He's a pastor, an author, and a neat guy. And I love the last part about ride on the side of truth. Here's one of the stories from the chapter. I was living in Taos, New Mexico then. A friend in West Lafayette, Indiana was getting married. So I rode the bike out and I was coming back across the Kansas plains, wide open. And I pulled up and passed this car with a girl and a lady driver and a couple of daughters in it. And she was being followed by 2 guys, maybe 3 guys in the car. She looked scared to death. So I pulled ahead and just waited, stayed close. They would let her pull ahead and then pull ahead. She pulled into a rest area, thinking that they stopped, waited, she came out. Finally, she pulled off to the side of the road. And I'm not a big hero. I'm not a mixed martial arts type guy, but I couldn't not do anything. So they had stopped. The guy started getting out of his car. I stopped the bike. I threw my leg over. I'm this long-haired hippie biker, and it looks like a chopped bike. It was a stock 750 Honda, extended front end with like an Easy Rider paint job, kind of like this. And these guys saw this long-haired biker get off. They jumped back in their car, spun, did a 180 across the dirt median, and were never seen again. So I think we need to, whenever we can as followers of God, do we can to support people, especially those that are more vulnerable than she was. And I didn't want to scare her even more, so I stayed in the bike, let her pass me, and she gave this nice little appreciative wave. Never saw her again. The guys never followed her, at least at that point.
By the way, that helmet reminded me a little bit of Evel Knievel. Now, what lessons does your book have for those who do not ride motorbikes?
A couple of them. One of the things I found that people who have friends or family members that ride are loving it. They get an insight into what thrills them, what their loved one enjoys about it. A lot of them being given as gifts to those people. But I think the key is there's an entrancement with motorcycles that permeates a lot of people if you don't ride. A lot are scared to ride. They've kind of toyed with the idea, but they just never have. And it gives them an insight into what it means to be out in the middle of God's glory, in his creation, and what the people they know and love think and love.
Now, you said in a big trip in 1974 was to find America. What did you discover during that trip?
A lot of things. I discovered that Americans were much better than I ever thought. This is the height of Watergate. The Vietnam War was still going on. It was a country in turmoil. Cities were burning with race riots. And I was kind of a little bit scared taking a bike that was painted like the Easy Rider bike across the country. I went to the South, and I remember what happened to two guys in Easy Rider at the end. It wasn't good. And I discovered people were so helpful. I had one couple outside of Boston invite me to stay in their house for a couple of days and tour. That he leaves work the next morning. His wife and 5-year-old son are there all alone with this long-haired hippie biker. Totally astounded me. I found the biggest problems I had were from law enforcement who didn't trust motorcyclists. It was right at, like I said, Watergate was coming to a peak, and I went into the Rhode Island State Capitol. That was the first colony to have full religious freedom, and you could see the charter signed by the King of England. I'm a history geek. I was a history major at Pepperdine, and I missed the last tour of the day. And I'm kind of complaining to the guy in Moding. I said, yeah, I'm a history guy. I'm a school teacher. I really want to see it. Well, I'll tell you what, wait till the tour's over. I'll give you a special trip back. So he took me back into the room where they put it away. There's a teletype machine. And as I'm reading it, the teletype goes off. Nixon was scheduling a speech for that night. He'd called Vice President Ford back to Washington. The word he was going to resign. And I saw the American system worked. It's that grand experiment in democracy, which had never been done at that level before, not even in Rome and the Greek city-states. It was working. And so it was a combination of the system worked, the people worked. I had so many invite me into their homes to stay. You pull up to a rest area and you've got your gear packed, and this is more back in the 70s, but even still today, people talk if you're on a bike. If you're in a car, they ignore you. You're one of a million. They see you in the bike and say, hey, where are you from? Where are you heading?
Did you ever stay at many of those KOA campgrounds? I did a few of those trips myself.
I did. Most of the time, I just find a place. I just graduated from college. Well, I was teaching at that point at a small Christian school, didn't pay a lot, so I was saving money. And I wouldn't even go KOA most of the time. I'd find a little place on a little bitty side road where nobody could see me. Sometimes in a rest area. Every so often I get a hotel room. And stayed with family and friends. Probably out of the 60 days on the road, probably 10 were under a roof.
Now, Tim, you've been riding for close to 50 years. What frightened you the most over these years of riding? Any nasty spills?
Yeah, I've been fortunate on that. The only time I went down, I had a bad back. I put a brand new tire in the back, and I'm going around a corner that wasn't even full 90, just 135. And so I went down, I was going like maybe 5 miles an hour, didn't get hurt. But the scariest, on that night that Nixon was resigning, I pulled into Groton, Connecticut, and it was either get a hotel room with a TV or go to a bar. Being a poor teacher, chose the bar, walked in a place called the Grotto. And as you walked in, there's a hallway going down both sides. And being right-handed, I just got a natural turn to the right. It was really dark. Walked around the wall where it opened up into the bar. Kind of a redneck bar, the place that a long-haired hippie biker would not want to stay. So I turned around, and just as I turned around there, another guy turned around at the opposite end. And you can't look a guy in the eye because that's a challenge. So I just kind of kept my head down, keep an eye where he was, and I moved off to my left, and he moved to his right in front of me. I moved to my right, and he moved to his left. And I'm thinking, Tim, you are going to get the holy snot beat out of you here. This is one guy, he looks kind of bulky. He's got all of his friends in there. So I thought, I better make peace. So I said, hey, I don't want any trouble. And this guy raised his hands. It was a mirror. It was my own reflection that scared me half to death.
That's incredible. Now, you do both solo rides and group rides. What are the pros and cons of riding solo?
Solo, you've got more freedom, more individuality. You can go wherever you want. There's 4 or 5 of us that take a big trip every year. And where we go is kind of a group consensus. You figure it out. I love to fish. So on the solo trips from near a trout stream, I can throw in. These guys aren't fishermen, so I've passed some beautiful trout streams and rivers, and I've just got to pass them. So solo, you've got that freedom to choose your path, a little bit more time to meditate and ponder. Benefits of going together, if anything goes wrong, you've got help there. But also the fellowship, the companionship. We've got a group of guys, we call ourselves the Gray Hogs. Gray because we're old, hogs because we eat too much, not because we ride Harleys. And it's a delightful time. That last year we went up to Canada, almost to Jasper. This year we're going to Oregon, Washington. I may, on my own, do a solo part going up. There's a little town in Alaska, Hyder. It's the southernmost town you can reach by road. And some bikers from Pennsylvania, we were in North Dakota last year, told me about it. So I may go shooting on up to Prince George, then over to Hyder and bag. That'll be state number 47 on the bucket list of 50 states on two wheels.
Now, your book, which is called God, a Motorcycle in the Open Road, also talks about a time when you think angels helped you out. Tell me a bit about that.
That was also in Canada. I love that country. I was coming down from Banff on the road to Radium Hot Springs, and I'm not smart enough to convert it to kilometers, but I was doing about 60 miles per hour, and the sign said 35 is this long sweeping turn to the right. And doing 60 at a 35 zone isn't bad on a bike. However, there were two of us on the bike, and all of our gear was in a duffel bag up high. And we're going about halfway into it, and all of a sudden, the rear wheel locks totally. Apparently, the chain had come loose, locked the entire wheel, and all the laws of physics said I should go down. And I've only been riding about a month and a half. I didn't know enough. And I'm convinced to this day, a couple of angels, or maybe an entire squadron, I didn't see them, but I wasn't good enough to save us. We just kept skidding around the corner. I finally pulled up the straight line. Took a couple of hours to get the bike fixed. We did. But that was one of the factors that showed me the reality of a spiritual world. And that was a key part of coming to Christ like about 5 months later.
Yeah, it's a miracle, absolutely. Now, Tim, motorbikes can be very dangerous. What safety advice do you have for our viewers who ride, or maybe the drivers of other vehicles who are around motorbikes?
I had just started, and a guy that had ridden quite a bit, in fact, he had fixed one of my bikes for me, put it together. He said, look at every car as intentionally out to get you. And always leave a buffer, leave some space. If they come after you, you can get away a little bit. It's become since then instinctive, and it's good advice on a car. The best advice if we want to stay safe in a bike is never get on one. They are inherently more dangerous, there's no doubt on that. But the benefits they bring to some of us are well worth it.
You know, it's interesting. I had the pleasure of interviewing a gentleman that owned a Harley dealership in Calgary, Southern Alberta, Harley Davidson. And he says to me, Hal, when these bikes come from the factory, they're quiet. We put on the aftermarket mufflers to make them loud. So we let people know, the drivers know around, that we're there. It's for our own safety. We do that most of the time. I thought, isn't it about the image for Harley? He says, no, it's more about our safety. So you know there's a motorbike there. So you're always aware. I found that was very interesting. So what advice would you give to new riders?
Go to a safety course. Learn how to ride. Take some time. Start on a smaller bike. One of the stats is that this has been for a long time. There are 3 factors that lead to fatal accidents on a bike. If you're under 21, if you're on a super bike, or on any bike for the first 6 months. So if you've got all 3 of those factors, it's pretty dangerous. So you start small. You don't get the big bike that's too much for you to handle. And get to know it. Take a safety course. Once you get to know that bike, bump it up a little bit. I'm just selling my Honda ST1300 now. Just bought a Goldwing. I'm finding as I get older, I love the comfort. And the ST is tempting me to go faster than I should, as fast as I used to. So you've got to push a little bit, but if you push too much, you die. So another piece of advice would be listen to your head, not just your heart.
And no more choppers.
You know, there's a place for them. I love the looks of them. The second bike was the 750 that was semi-chopped. I would love to get one of those American chopper bikes for around town. They're not that comfortable on a long road, that they bounce more. When you've got the long extension of the front end, turning is a real pain. But dang, they look good. They are gorgeous vehicles.
Tim Ryder, author of God, a Motorcycle in the Open Road. Thanks a lot for joining us today from California.
Al, I really appreciate it. And if you ever get another bike, let me know and we'll take a ride when I get up to Canada next time.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Tim. On behalf of all of us here at PCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.